when I was a little kid, and I used to hang out with my grandfather, who was in his 90s, and I thought, Jesus, who the hell would want to live this long?
Clint Eastwood's rise to a $375 million fortune stands as proof that greatness doesn't always emerge from privilege or ease. Instead, his journey is one of grit, persistence, and an unyielding desire to succeed despite the odds. His path to fortune, marked by iconic Western roles, directorial successes, and financial acumen, has unfolded with sharp turns and significant risks, much like the very films that made him a star. More than just a symbol of Hollywood grit, Clint Eastwood became a master of financial foresight, turning decades of hard work into lasting wealth. But behind the numbers lies a quieter story, one of endurance, resilience, and strategic thinking that few truly see. Before his monumental success, Clint faced a humble beginning, and his ascent to fame and fortune was anything but a smooth ride. A humble beginning, born in the shadow of the Great Depression. Clint Eastwood's story begins on May 31st, 1930, in San Francisco, California. His birth occurred during one of the most challenging times in American history, the Great Depression. This was a period of economic collapse that saw millions struggling to survive, and it was in this backdrop of financial hardship that Eastwood was born. His parents, Clinton Eastwood Sr. and Ruth Wood, were not wealthy and did not have the comforts that others in Hollywood would later enjoy. They were middle-class Americans whose lives were shaped by the economic struggles of the time. The Eastwoods were a family constantly on the move, chasing job opportunities wherever they could be found. Clint's father worked as a steelworker and later as a manufacturing executive, but job stability remained elusive. The family's nomadic lifestyle was dictated by the financial pressures of the time, with Clint often relocating from one place to another as his parents tried to secure stable work. These early years, filled with economic uncertainty and constant transitions, laid the groundwork for Clint's future resilience and work ethic. Lessons in resilience. Growing up with limited stability. Living in a world where financial security was never a guarantee, Clint experienced firsthand what it meant to go without. The Eastwoods lived in cramped temporary homes, small rental properties, or staying with relatives, never really able to settle into a stable life. This lack of stability wasn't romanticized. It was a harsh reality that shaped Clint's early sense of independence. These formative years were marked by a series of sacrifices, not only financially, but emotionally. There was no time to build lasting friendships or accumulate the memories of a secure childhood. Clint, often described as a quiet and introspective boy, did not thrive in the normal structures of childhood. He attended multiple schools, his education frequently disrupted by the family's need to relocate for survival. By all accounts, Clint wasn't a standout student. He struggled academically, and his love for learning was overshadowed by the constant upheaval around him. Friends were fleeting due to the frequent moves, and Clint often found solace in solitude. These early experiences, being thrust into constant change, had a profound impact on his character. They gave him an early understanding of adaptability, but they also robbed him of emotional security and the warmth of permanence. Early work, from odd jobs to lifeguard to actor. As a teenager, Clint took on various jobs to help support his family. He worked as a lifeguard, a golf caddy, a grocery clerk, and even as a forest firefighter. These were not glamorous roles, but they were grounding, teaching him the value of hard work, responsibility, and sacrifice. Clint's youthful endeavors weren't just about earning a paycheck. They were about survival, about learning how to navigate a world that offered few opportunities. Each job added another layer to Clint's character and work ethic, preparing him for the many challenges that lay ahead. It's humbling to think of a future legend like Clint Eastwood sweeping floors and stocking shelves just to make ends meet. At this point in his life, he wasn't thinking about Hollywood or fame. He was focused on helping his family stay afloat, on surviving the very real financial pressures that came with growing up in the Depression. Yet, despite these hardships, Clint held on to an essential trait: perseverance. Even when life seemed to conspire against him, he never gave up on the idea of a better future. His dreams remained quiet but persistent, and he continued to work hard, waiting for the moment when his big break would come. The breakthrough, from rawhide to international stardom. Clint Eastwood's first steps into the world of acting came in the 1950s, though it wasn't until 1958 that he truly began to make a name for himself. In that year, Clint landed the role of Rowdy Yates in the television series Rawhide. At the time, Clint's salary was just $750 per episode, a far cry from the millions he would one day earn. But the role was a turning point for him, as it gave him the visibility he needed to begin his climb to stardom. As Rawhide gained in popularity, so did Clint's paycheck, and by the time the show ended, he was earning a considerable $119,000 per episode as part of his severance package. For a man who had once worked odd jobs just to survive, this was an enormous leap, one that marked the beginning of his rise in Hollywood. But Clint didn't rest on his laurels. He understood the importance of taking risks and seizing opportunities. In 1964, he took a bold step by accepting a role in an Italian film titled A Fistful of Dollars. The film, which was a modest production, would become a global phenomenon. Clint's portrayal of the mysterious and rugged man with no name catapulted him to international stardom. What started as a small role with a modest salary of $15,000 turned into a career-defining opportunity. The film was a surprise hit, and Clint's performance became the foundation for the spaghetti western genre. His fee for the sequel, for a few dollars more, soared to $50,000, and then to $250,000 for The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly in 1966. By the time Clint had made a name for himself in the western genre, his career trajectory had changed forever. He was no longer just an actor. He was a commodity, someone whose name could sell tickets. Financial foresight, smart business moves, and wealth accumulation. While Clint Eastwood's acting career was taking off, he was also thinking beyond the screen. In 1967, Clint founded his production company, Malpaso Productions, a move that would have a profound impact on his financial future. Named after a creek near his property in Monterey County, Malpaso would produce many of Clint's films over the coming decades, including some of his most acclaimed works such as Unforgiven, $1 Million Baby, Gran Torino, and American Sniper. By establishing his own production company, Clint gained creative and financial control over his projects. He was no longer just an actor being handed scripts. He was now in charge of his own artistic direction and the business side of his career. One of Clint's most astute business moves came in 1968, when he starred in Hang 'em High. Rather than simply accepting a flat fee, Clint negotiated a deal that gave him $400,000 up front, plus 25% of the film's net box office profits. This rare profit-sharing arrangement set Clint apart from his peers, many of whom were content to accept a paycheck without the foresight to negotiate for long-term gains. This move marked the beginning of Clint's business-savvy approach to his career, a pattern he would continue for the rest of his life. A vision beyond the screen, Clint Eastwood's approach to legacy. Unlike many Hollywood stars, Clint Eastwood didn't simply view wealth as a byproduct of fame or box office success. Instead, he saw it as a tool to ensure independence, security, and a lasting impact. Early on, Clint understood that real financial power came not from short-term paydays or one-off projects, but from control. Control over his career, his assets, and his family's future. Over the decades, Clint's wealth grew, not just through his earnings as an actor, director, and producer, but through his deep understanding of how money worked in the larger picture of his life. From the late 1960s through the 1990s, he would leverage his business acumen to transform his financial future. By the time Clint Eastwood reached the height of his career, he was no longer the young man receiving a paycheck for his work. Instead, he had transitioned into someone who could shape his career and his financial path on his own terms. In an era when most actors simply accepted the roles they were given, Clint Eastwood demanded equity control and long-term value in his projects. It was a rare move in Hollywood, a departure from the model of actors earning a wage and little more. The long road to financial independence. For Clint, the journey to financial independence was not just about making wise business deals, it was about a relentless commitment to personal responsibility. His early life, marked by economic instability and uncertainty, shaped his perspective on money and the value of hard work. Clint's formative years were defined by struggle. Born in San Francisco during the Great Depression, Clint Eastwood was raised in a household where financial security was never a guarantee. His father, Clinton Eastwood Sr., held various jobs, but none offered the kind of stability that Clint would come to crave. The Eastwood family moved frequently across California, often staying in temporary homes or with relatives. This lifestyle of constant relocation instilled in Clint a sense of independence, but it also left emotional scars that would shape the man he became. Clint learned early that success was earned, not given. His childhood was spent working odd jobs, anything to help his family survive. He worked as a lifeguard, a grocery clerk, and even a forest firefighter, earning whatever he could to contribute. As a teenager, he faced the pressure to work and support his family, rather than focus on academics or socializing. He took on this responsibility with a quiet resolve, understanding that the world was not going to hand him anything. It was this resilience, honed through years of necessity, that laid the foundation for his future financial success. Clint's rise to stardom was not a story of inherited privilege. It was the result of years of hard work, sacrifice, and smart choices. In the 1950s, Clint took his first steps into the entertainment industry, initially making small appearances in television and films. It wasn't until 1958 that he was cast as Rowdy Yates on Rawhide, a role that would catapult him to fame. Despite earning a modest $750 per episode, Clint was determined to make his mark. When Rawhide ended in 1965, Clint's paycheck had grown to $119,000 per episode, a clear indication of the increasing demand for his talent. A strategic investment. Clint's financial savvy. What truly set Clint apart from his contemporaries, however, was his ability to think beyond the immediate payoff. While many actors were content to earn their salaries and spend their money, Clint Eastwood recognized the importance of making his money work for him. His decision to take on roles that allowed him to retain equity was just the beginning of his financial strategy. By the time Clint reached the 1970s, his financial success wasn't just due to his acting career, it was the result of a comprehensive strategy that included investments in real estate, the stock market, and even a number of high-profile business ventures. In 1999, Clint made one of his most astute financial moves when he purchased shares in the Pebble Beach Company. Along with a group of other high-profile investors, Clint acquired stock in the company that owned the renowned Pebble Beach golf links and a network of luxury hotels and restaurants. At the time, the investment was valued at $820 million, with Clint paying $2 million per share. Fast forward to 2020, and those shares were estimated to be worth $8 million to $9 million each. This incredible appreciation in value cemented Clint's status as not only an actor, but a master investor who knew how to turn passion into profit. In addition to his business ventures, Clint's financial portfolio also included a range of blue-chip stocks. He invested in companies like Apple, ExxonMobil, and Walmart, as well as a variety of others in the tech, energy, and finance sectors. By carefully selecting his investments, Clint ensured that his wealth would continue to grow long after his time in front of the camera had ended. Estate planning, the quiet legacy of Clint Eastwood. As Clint Eastwood grew older, his focus shifted from building wealth to preserving his legacy. He began to think not just about how he could provide for his family today, but how he could leave a lasting impact on the generations that would follow. The cornerstone of this effort was Clint's estate planning. Clint Eastwood's estate was not built on a foundation of flashy indulgences or ostentatious displays of wealth. Instead, Clint focused on investments that would create lasting value, whether that was in real estate, art, or his carefully structured financial portfolio. His real estate holdings reflect his taste for solitude, beauty, and history. In California, Clint owned a sprawling 15,900 square foot estate in Carmel by the Sea, overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The home, valued at $20 million, was not just a luxury residence. It was a sanctuary, a place of peace and reflection. For Clint, this home represented more than just a financial investment. It was a space where memories could be made and where his personal legacy would be preserved. In addition to his homes in Carmel and Los Angeles, Clint Eastwood owned properties in other parts of the United States. In Sun Valley, Idaho, Clint owned a 5,700 square foot home on 12 acres of mountainous land, valued at $16 million. The property, which had been featured in the 1956 film Bus Stop starring Marilyn Monroe, was a testament to Clint's appreciation for history and character. He also owned a 1.5-acre oceanfront property on Maui, Hawaii, a place where Clint could escape the demands of fame and enjoy the natural beauty of the island. A legacy of thoughtful family planning. When it came to his family, Clint Eastwood's approach to legacy was equally thoughtful. With 8 children from different relationships, Clint was careful to ensure that each child would be provided for in a way that respected their individual needs and aspirations. While he may not have been a father who expressed his affection in grand gestures, Clint showed his love through quiet acts of support and validation. His estate planning likely included a series of trusts that allowed him to pass on his wealth to his children in a way that minimized conflict and ensured their futures were secure. These trusts also allowed Clint to maintain privacy while providing his family with the financial stability they needed. Experts suggest that Clint's will may have been structured in such a way as to reflect the unique needs of each child. For example, his children who pursued careers in acting or music, such as Scott and Allison Eastwood, may have received funding to help continue their careers in the entertainment industry. The lasting impact of Clint's charitable contributions. Clint Eastwood was a man of quiet activism. While his fame often centered on his larger-than-life characters on screen, his heart was always attuned to the needs of others. Throughout his life, Clint was known for his staunch support of veterans, education, and environmental conservation efforts. He didn't just speak about causes. He invested time, energy, and his personal wealth into them. And so, it would be no surprise if part of Clint's legacy was dedicated to funding charitable foundations, scholarships, or conservation programs, continuing his lifelong commitment to making the world a better place. Clint's support for veterans was particularly personal. Growing up during the Second World War, He witnessed the struggles of soldiers returning from service. As he grew older, Clint used his platform to highlight the challenges faced by veterans and support efforts to provide them with necessary resources. His charitable giving in this area wasn't just a passing gesture, it was a consistent thread throughout his life. From fundraising efforts to lending his name to veteran-focused causes, Clint never turned his back on those who served their country. A legacy of tenderness beyond wealth. When Clint Eastwood's family gathers to read the details of his will and testament, they won't just see a financial ledger. They will be encountering the most intimate aspects of Clint's love for them. While Clint was known for his reserved nature and his ability to convey deep emotion with few words, his estate planning was an expression of a love that spoke volumes. These weren't just instructions about who should inherit what, but reflections of his deepest affections and his quiet way of showing care. Each page will be filled with a deliberate tenderness, a love that Clint rarely expressed openly, but which, in his own way, he made clear through his actions. For Clint, legacy wasn't about leaving behind a fortune to be inherited. It was about ensuring that the people and causes he cared for would continue to thrive long after his passing. His careful planning, the way he laid out his wishes, was the final act of a man who had spent his life giving to others, whether that was through his art, his advocacy, or his relationships. It wasn't about showing off, it was about making sure that those left behind would be taken care of, that they would understand the depth of his love and the thought he put into ensuring their future success. A quiet giant with a lasting influence. Clint Eastwood's legacy will endure, not through grand gestures or public displays of affection, but through the steady, silent hands of his children, the causes he championed, and the homes he built with love and purpose. Clint's story isn't one of celebrity excess or flamboyance. It is one of restraint, dignity, and quiet power. A life lived with intention and integrity. His wealth, while substantial, was never the end goal. The real prize was the opportunity to tell stories, create meaning, and build a life grounded in principles he held dear. The way Clint Eastwood chose to leave his wealth behind is perhaps the clearest reflection of who he was as a person. It wasn't just about leaving behind material goods. It was about leaving behind a standard for how to live. It's a standard that emphasizes the importance of giving, of thinking beyond oneself, and of making decisions that have a lasting impact. Clint didn't just leave behind a fortune. He left behind a legacy of love, purpose, and careful planning that will continue to shape the lives of those he loved. When the time comes to reflect on Clint Eastwood's life, it won't just be his box office successes or his iconic roles that come to mind. It will be the way he lived, quietly, purposefully, and with a deep sense of responsibility to those he cared about. His story serves as a reminder that true greatness isn't measured by the size of one's fortune or the headlines that surround them, but by the quiet, consistent actions they take to make the world a better place. Clint Eastwood was a giant of Hollywood, yes, but more importantly, he was a giant of character, leaving behind a legacy that will resonate for generations to come.